Hey, everybody, this is Munson Steed, and you are on CEO to CEO, where I give you and you give me, and we give everybody access to phenomenal CEOs who are making a difference in this entire community. Today, of course, one of my favorites when you think of those CEOs who are moving in a way and a direction that will allow us to understand the value that we all can give if we choose. I really am excited about Miss CEO Janice Whaley. How are you? And welcome to CEO to CEO.
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, when you got the call that you were going to be CEO of the Donor Network West, what were your first thoughts?
I was a little bit shocked, but I was happy that they saw in me the ability to lead the organization. It was an arduous interview process that took over 8 months. And I really wasn't sure whether or not I was going to get the opportunity. I am the first Black female CEO in the country, in our industry. And so I was hoping to open some doors, and I was able to do that. I don't know if it was shattering the glass ceiling, but it certainly did feel like I was viewed as somebody who was capable and competent to do the job, and there didn't seem to be any focus on the color of my skin.
Well, you know, it's nice of you to say that, but I think your skin is just beautiful. And the integrity that comes from women, whether it's the vice president of these United States, whether it is a woman who, whether it's Dorothy Height, whether it's any other sister that has created and worked in institutions to create safe spaces with benefits, that's you. So we really appreciate that. But our audience may have no clue what a OPO is. Can you inform us and invite us into your world?
Yeah, and so we are an organ procurement organization, and we're designated by the federal government to facilitate organ and tissue donation within the country. And so there are 57 organ procurement organizations, and they're designated in various areas around the country. I am designated to Northern California and Northern Nevada, where we facilitate the education, the donation process, and also the safe recovery of organs by the surgeons to be used for transplantation.
Well, don't stop there. I think
Yeah.
what you know, it literally in this moment, our community, the Black community, the rolling out community, what should we know about organ donation that you really wish we would share with us as a culture?
Well, I think it starts with the word trust that has been very difficult for us because we've experienced a lot of things in healthcare that don't breed trust in our community per se. But I also have to say that because of hypertension and diabetes that runs rampant throughout our community, the idea of potentially needing a kidney transplant one day is very prominent within the community. And when you look at the wait list, approximately 60% of the wait list are people that are waiting on a kidney transplant. And of that list, there is a significant amount, if not more than 60%, are people of color. And so I think it's important that awareness is raised about donation, how it actually happens, and then the dispelling of myths that go along with it. I have long been a proponent and an advocate of equity and access. And it is coming to light that, you know, a lot of people who are on dialysis that are minorities have never been told about the opportunity to get a transplant. And so I really feel like it's very important that we have these discussions within our community. We identify what the concerns are so that people not only can receive transplants, but also understand how important donation is. As a community of color, as Black Americans, when we receive a kidney from another Black American, it is less likely not to function well. There are a lot of papers out there that say that the identity, the antigens, and all the tissue makeup, I don't want to get too complicated here, is more identical. And they've seen that when people of color donate to other people of color, it's a better match than if we were to receive an organ from a person that is not a non-person of color. It doesn't mean that that doesn't occur, because the need is so great. Every day in this country, approximately 20 people die waiting on a transplant. So it's not about being a donor and designating your organs to, someone of color. It happens naturally, because when they do the different testing behind the scenes, they can see better matches, especially with kidneys, when it's from another person of color.
If you were speaking at a high school or a college and you're going to share with them the value and what they should do, obviously they may not be in need at that moment, but what should they know that you would like them to know about participating and signing up today?
Donation saves lives. It gives people second chances. Those who donate leave a legacy of life in helping someone else. So I think more than anything, the ability to give that person another day, another week, another year, is part of the human experience. And I think that every day in my work, I go about it knowing that one day, if my time comes, that if I'm able, and my organs are functioning, that someone else buys them more time or extends their life to a normal a stage of life. There are many people that have received an organ transplant and have gone on to do so many wonderful things, and participate in the communities that they serve. And so there's a lot of value to knowing that you on the donation side can help someone else, and then those who receive are so grateful that they have an opportunity now to see their kids grow up, to witness their daughter getting married or their son. There's so many things that they're right now, those waiting are just hoping and praying to get to that point. And we have the power to help eliminate that list by giving, if we have that opportunity. I did mention something that I think is important too, is there is such a thing called living donation. So with kidneys only, and actually kidneys and liver, where you can give up one of your kidneys, you really only need one. And so there are a lot of people who have become donors, living donors, and have been able to help somebody else. The amount of people waiting on kidney transplants is huge in this country. And I think living donation and organ donation are two ways in which we can get that list down, and people can go back to a normal sense of life.
When you think of that, the cost, who bears the cost if you're a living donor? I think, is that the living person has to pay for the cost? What happens?
No, actually, that's a great question. And I happen to have served on the committee, the ACOT committee, which is a committee, an advisory committee that looked to put things in place so there would not be any cost for that living donor. So right now, when someone decides to be a living donor, the government pays for them to take that time off if they don't have the time off. They've put things in place with different organizations that allows the organization to allow them the time off without them losing any of their salary. So there are a lot of things in place now where it's very comfortable, and we recently upgraded that to, for example, if you are a caregiver and you decide to give one of your kidneys, they will support making sure that you have someone that cares for your loved one during that time too as well, meaning they would compensate you for that need as well. And so they've really worked hard to improve the benefits that are provided and for those who are living donors too as well. So there's no money out of costs. Everything is taken care of. Your lab work, everything that you have to do to determine whether or not you're a living donor is all paid for through the insurance of that recipient who's going to receive it, and then obviously the government indirectly makes sure that those bills are taken care of.
When you first got to where you are, you're the second largest. What did you decide your style was going to be when you had such now a huge opportunity and you were first, which is, can you believe it?
Yeah, so great question. I really just said, just be open, come in and see where your team is at, what work has been done, and try to see where you can add value and make a difference. And I had really spent a lot of time looking at the data of the organization. And I noticed that, we did not represent the population that we served from the standpoint of race and ethnicity. And I also then looked at our donation rates and saw that they looked the same way that our organization looked, meaning we were not getting a lot of yeses from people of color in general. And so I started slowly but surely identifying ways to not only make sure that my team was represented the population that we serve, but that also we were able to get people who understood the cultures of the different races and ethnicities that we serve within this group, and putting the right people in front of our families. And so versus just having anybody go in and talk to families, we want people who are educated about that particular community. And so it's been very helpful. It's really focused our team on making sure that we have the best person that can be trusted by the family to understand the nuances of donation. And we've been able to empower families that in the past have said no to donation because they've not been able to be open with their concerns. And so it's about intentionality. I was very intentional when I came on board, and strategic, making sure that I wasn't just walking the talk, talking the talk, but also walking the talk. And so I'm really happy to see that 4 years later into this journey, we represent the population that we serve. We've identified leaders within our organization that are people of color, and we've been able to help them develop and grow and become leaders within this organization. When I came on board, I was the only Black person in the room. I walked into a room with 10 other executives that did not look like me. And I initially was very troubled by that, in the sense of I did not know how to navigate things initially. But, I took my time and I set some expectations, and again, very intentional. And today we represent and look like the population that we serve, which is very important in this process.
Thank you. You mentioned the call or meeting with one of the workers. Maybe we can share how we know that there's going to be a call. There's been an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, you didn't anticipate it. It was your son or daughter.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next?
So We work in collaboration with the hospitals. The hospitals, just like we have some mandates on how we conduct our business, the hospitals do too. And so they have regulations that say that if somebody is deemed to not be able to survive whatever the incident was, that they call us for us to evaluate. And so we're not called to go ahead and recover organs. We're called to evaluate to make sure that the person is suitable. And so we get that initial call from the nurse at the hospital. All hospitals are required to call in any imminent deaths. And once we get that call, we do a preliminary evaluation, and then we have a representative go to the hospital and do a more in-depth evaluation. Some I've heard say that, oh, if it's on your driver's license, and the paramedic sees it, they won't try to save your life. We're not involved in that during that time period at all. It really doesn't matter what's on your driver's license at that time. We get called when that person is imminent. Death is imminent for that person. And they do that through some testing that is done. And then we're called to evaluate, and depending on how far that person progressed, that's when we do an evaluation to see if the organs are suitable for transplantation, a preliminary look, and then further along the line, we then have conversations with the hospital about what the next steps are, and also about the family, because sometimes people are not registered. We haven't talked about the registry, but you can actually register to be a donor. And once that happens, we still have conversations with your family. We share with them that you had made your wishes known by signing up on the registry, which will be identified on your driver's license. But we're not involved until all hope has been lost for that person to survive the injury that has happened.
Well, you're such a great leader. Getting on a registry. How important is it for our community and for individuals to really get on the registry?
It's very important, because when something tragic happens, everyone, your family members, are in shock, and they're not going to necessarily know or think about what your wishes may have been. And so I've sat down with my family and I've said, I'm a registered donor. It's on my driver's license. If something happens to me, please make sure that I help, I'm able to help save someone's life. You take that burden off of family members that may just be curious to know whether or not that is something that you would have wanted to do. At the end of the day, when we have these discussions, the representative really talks about that individual and then shares with the family that they also signed up to be on the registry. And most families are relieved when they hear that, because they aren't sure about what that decision may have been. And so it's important that we make it known that we sign up to register, but also to have a conversation with our family, so that if something happens, they're well prepared to say, oh yeah, he said they wanted to be a donor. And it's a much smoother process than somebody being concerned that they're not respecting the wishes that you may have had.
You have a beautiful career. Now, some career insights for those who are watching.
Mhm.
What would you suggest for a young person who is in college and thinking about getting the health field? Why should they think about working at an OPO, and how important is it for, now that you've opened the door, for others to be prepared and qualified to walk in?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's a great question. First, I would say really sit down and think about what you want to do. When I was going through college, and I was right at the beginning of grad school, I had initially said I wanted to be a physician, a doctor. And then I got a little bit disenchanted. I was like, oh, 4 more years, and it wasn't because I did not want to do what it took, the studying and all that stuff. It was, I had this sense of urgency to get out there to help people. And I credit this to my upbringing. My father, I'm a PK, a preacher's kid, and my dad served overseas in education and also in ministry. And I have just saw all my life my parents helping people and giving to others, enhancing people's lives. And so I always wanted to be in a field where I felt I could make an impact on others. And so this job came up, and at the time I came in as a staff member, as a coordinator, and was able to move up the ranks. And I sit here today, 30 years later, still doing this work because of my passion for the people that we serve. So I think, let me sum this up a little bit. Know your why. That's very important. I had to sit down and think about what is my why. And as I've grown, I realized that my why was this recipient who I went through the journey of that person waiting on a transplant, that person receiving a transplant, and then that person ultimately calling me and saying, hey, need to talk to you. And when I went to talk to them, they had told me that it was looking like they would have to get another transplant in order to continue to live. And the comment that has stuck with me, and this happened, I think 6 or 7 years ago, was that he said, you know, I could have a 30% chance of surviving another transplant, but what you were able to give me by me getting that first organ speaks volumes. I want somebody else to experience that. I have been able to live 5 more years of life, and there's nothing that I have not, my family has made sure that I've been able to do many things that some people in their 50s don't do. And this was a 21-year-old kid talking to me about it. And he said, I'm ready, I'm tired, I need to rest, and I want that next young person to get the next chance. And the final thing that he said to me, and this was literally about a month before he passed away, was don't stop doing what you're doing. You have no idea how much you have impacted me, whether it was indirectly or directly. I was able to be here because of the work that you do. And so this has been my why, that continues to push me, that continues to inspire me to continue to do what I'm doing. And so as you go through the process of figuring out what is it you want to do, think about that. And I will tell you that I can't see myself doing any other job. So if your passion is about going home every day, impacting someone's life, the organ procurement organization or industry is the place for you. Fortunately for us, the industry is very broad in its expectations and its requirements. And so there are multiple tracks that you can take. I was not a nurse. I had a degree in biology, a minor in chemistry, and people that believed in me and taught me and got me to this level. I did go to graduate school, and I was involved in a postgraduate program. But after that, what I started doing was ordering my steps, building what I wanted to do next. And I made sure that I was crossing my T's and dotting my I's as I went along. I wanted to be the leader that I am today. And so I took charge. I got some education on the business side of things, because this is still a business. It's a compassionate business, but you do have to understand how to run an organization. So make sure that you're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And, you know, I sometimes hear people say, well, so-and-so didn't have to do it, but why do I have to do it? I still believe that you should get as much as you can. And it doesn't matter what other people are doing. Don't ever feel entitled, earn it, and make sure that you have the knowledge and the education. That's what's empowering, and that's what gets you at the table. And I often refer to that because it's very important that people of color have a seat at the table. And I am at the table. All the seats at the table are mine because of my the way in which I have intentionally built my career to get to this point. And my goal now is to mentor and empower others to do the same. So that's my story. I hope I didn't share too much, but yeah.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming to CEO, Janice Whaley, CEO of Donor Network West. She is definitely a first mover, a sister with superpowers. She has created a safe space with benefits for all of us, a second chance at life. We want to thank you for your commitment and want to thank you for continuing to light the way for those of us to see how important it is to give life to others through donation. I'm Munson Steed, and you are watching with CEO Janice Whaley of Donor Network West. Thank you.
Thank you.